in Libya when Gaddafi was threatening to massacre his population. I put together a coalition that included NATO, included the Arab League, and we were able to save lives. We did not lose a single American in that action.
Well, the families of those 4 people at the consulate would beg to differ. Greg Hicks joins us now, former Executive Chief of Mission for Libya. Greg, welcome. Very good to have you on the program this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So when you hear Hillary Clinton say that at the Commander-in-Chief Forum, what goes through your mind?
Well, as you might imagine, the flames of the burning consulate erupt in my mind, and also I vividly remember seeing my 4 fallen comrades on the hospital beds in Tripoli afterwards. It's a very emotional reaction I have. I'm sorry about that.
I don't blame you, sir. I can only imagine how frustrated you must be with this story. I also wonder, there are people almost make fun of the word Benghazi. They say, oh, it's just, they're Benghaziing this or that, making a big deal out of things that shouldn't be made a big deal out of. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say to them that Mrs. Clinton sent our people in Benghazi into harm's way. And she then delegated her responsibility, her legal obligation to protect our overseas Americans to others. And those people then reduced our security complement in Tripoli from 34 to 6, so that when Chris Stevens went to Benghazi, he could only take 2 security agents with him instead of the dozen or more that he should have had with him. And I'd also tell them that she delegated the decision to divide our people in Benghazi into 2 separate facilities. The law says that decision can't be delegated. And so we have the very vivid stand-down controversy that was portrayed in the 13 Hours movie.
Yeah, because as you tell the story, because the 2 spaces were divided into 2 different buildings, they basically had to cover each other. And that provided the moment when there was a decision whether or not one side would stand down while the other side was under attack. These are the words of Colin Powell. I know you've been hearing this morning, there's so much discussion about the leaks from his email. And I thought this one would be of interest to you. He says, Benghazi is a stupid witch hunt. Basic fault falls on a courageous ambassador who thought Libyans now love me and I'm okay in this very vulnerable place.
Chris Stevens had some very serious work to do. One of his primary missions in Benghazi was to correct the mistake of having 2 facilities, to combine our personnel into 1 permanent consulate. And Hillary Clinton asked him to do that. And I would also note that the majority report of the Benghazi committee details that Mrs. Clinton was planning to visit Tripoli in October of 2012, and where we hoped she would be able to announce that consolidation of a facility. So Chris Stevens was doing his job in Benghazi, and he knew the risks, yes, but that's the definition of courage, to understand the risks, to understand that you have a job to do, and then you go and do it anyway.
So in the course of the Benghazi investigation, it was discovered that Hillary Clinton had a server at home in Chappaqua. Since then, thousands of emails have disappeared, and many wonder how many of them may have dealt with the issue of Benghazi. There was an FBI investigation into that, and they said there was no intent on her part to mislead anyone or to misuse that information. Do you think anyone has dropped the ball in terms of your companions, your work companions who lost their lives that day? And if so, who?
Well, the disappearance of American history that has taken place is a very serious breach of trust of the American people and of America's democracy. And it's shameful. Now, I think that Congressman Gowdy and the committee, Benghazi committee, has done as good a job as they could, given the amount of information that was made available to them. But they didn't receive all of the information that was available. When I testified before the committee in April, that was readily apparent. The majority confirmed is in the course of my discussions that deliberative documents that they had requested from the State Department were not provided to them. Yet when the minority questioned me, they presented to me deliberative documents as part of their inquiry.
Yeah.
So what's the story there?
What's missing? Greg Hicks, thank you. I wish we had more time, and I know you have retired from 25 years of service at the State Department, and we thank you for your service to our country. And we look forward to speaking with you again, sir.
Thank you very much.
At about 10:30 here.